Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunachira Vanachari Yamunachira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari 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 Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Ashtotara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Thank you. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. So welcome everyone to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We'll be reading today from the 9th canto, chapter 18, entitled King Yayati Achieves Liberation, and we're on verse 16. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Would anyone mind grabbing a Bhagavad Gita for me? I forgot to grab one. Thank you, Prabhu. English. Hare Krishna Sangita. Thank you. Okay, so we'll start by reciting the Sanskrit verse. Ya dustyaja durmatibhir. Thank you, Prabhu. Jiryato ya na jiryate tam trishnam dukkha nivaham sharma kamo drutam tyajet ya dustyaja durmatibhir jiryato ya na jiryate tam trishnam dukkha nivaham sharma kamo drutam tyajet Yadustyaja durmatibhir jiryato yana jiryate tam trishnam dukha nivaham sharma kamo dhrutam tyajet. Yadustyaja durmatibhir jiryato yana jiryate tam trishnam dukha nivaham sharma kamo dhrutam tyajet. Yadustyaja durmatibhir jiryato yana jiryate tam trishnam dukha nivaham sharma kamo dhrutam tyajet. Mataji's? Yadustyaja durmatibhir jiryato yana jiryate tam trishnam dukha nivaham sharma kamo dhrutam tyajet. Okay, we'll go ahead and go through the word for word translation. Ya, that which. Dustyaja, extremely difficult to give up. Durmatibhi, by persons too attached to material enjoyment. Jiryataha, even by one who is an invalid because of old age. Ya, that which. Na, not. Jiryate, is vanquished. Tam, such. Trishnam, desire. Dukha nivaham, which is the cause of all tribulations. Sharma kamaha, a person desiring his own happiness. Dhrutam, very soon. Tyajet, should give up. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. For those who are too attached to material enjoyment, sense gratification is very difficult to give up. Even when one is an invalid because of old age, one cannot give up such desires for sense gratification. Therefore, one who actually desires happiness must give up such unsatisfied desires, which are the cause of all tribulations. Purport. We have actually seen, especially in the Western countries, that men who have reached more than 80 years of age still go to nightclubs and pay heavy fees to drink wine and associate with women. Although such men are too old to enjoy anything, their desires have not ceased. Time deteriorates even the body itself, which is the medium for all sensual satisfaction. But even when a man becomes old, an invalid, his desires are strong enough to dictate that he go here and there to satisfy the desires of his senses. Therefore, by the practice of bhakti yoga, one should give up his lusty desires, as explained by Sri Yamunacharya. Yadavadi mama cheta Krishna padaravinde Navanavarasadhaman yuddhatam rantumasit tadavati batanari sangame smaryamane bhavati mukhavikara sushtunishtivanam cha. When one is Krishna conscious, he gets more and more happiness by discharging duties for Krishna. Such a person spits on sense gratification, especially that of sexual enjoyment. An experienced, advanced devotee is no longer interested in sex life. The strong desire for sex can be subdued only by advancement in Krishna consciousness. So before I begin speaking, we'll just recite a few prayers as invocation to invoke the blessings of previous teachers, previous acharyas, blessings of Srila Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatimirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'll read the translation one last time. For those who are too attached to material enjoyment, sense gratification is very difficult to give up. Even when one is an invalid because of old age, one cannot give up such desires for sense gratification. Therefore, one who actually desires happiness must give up such unsatisfied desires, which are the cause of all tribulations. So I pray for the blessings of the Vaishnavas assembled, that I may be able to speak something which is beneficial for myself and others, and which is faithful to the Guru Parampara. So here in this verse, the main message that Prabhupada is emphasizing is how difficult it is for an entangled conditioned soul to give up sense gratification, which we're so accustomed to in the material world. And particularly that it is so difficult to give up this desire, this thirst for sense enjoyment, that even somebody who has reached a very old age, Prabhupada gives the example of those who are even more than 80 years old, that even in such old age, one finds that the desires are still just as strong as before, that they haven't abated. And the word for desire in this verse is trishnam, which in other places is often translated as thirst. It's a very intense thirst for gratifying the senses. And as I mentioned, Prabhupada cites his own experience in the Western countries, particularly of old men who are 80 plus years old. They're still trying to enjoy even by going into nightclubs. And they're paying very exorbitant prices to be able to drink and associate with women. And of course, by the time they reach this kind of advanced age, they've already gone through the same kinds of quote-unquote enjoyment, sensual enjoyment, so many times over the course of their life, and yet they're still not satisfied. And the desires have not ceased. There's no satiation. There's no satiation point. There's no point at which I gave the example in the last class that I gave that, it's not like we're filling up a progress bar each time that we engage in sense gratification, and one day finally we'll have filled it up completely. It's like, okay, I reached 100% and now I'm satisfied. The bar never fills up. We just keep trying to fill it, and then it goes back down, and then we're trying to make it advance again, it just goes back down. And so it's a desperate situation, and actually these desires, this thirst is also a kind of agitation. We may tend to kind of glorify desires in the modern age, like I want this, I want to have a big house, and I want to have an amazing car, and I want to have a prestigious position in a big Fortune 500 company. And if somebody has many desires like this, and they're very ambitious to achieve so many desires, we see it as like, this is a very good thing. It's like a glorious thing to have so many desires. That means that person is so full of life and they want to do so much. But actually each of these desires, if we analyze at their root, they're actually driven by a agitation. Each one is its own brand of agitation. And so the word thirst used here is actually really appropriate, because when we're thirsty, we have a desire to drink water. And then when we finally come to the point of drinking water, we feel some relief. But what is it that's actually pushing us to have that desire? It's that when we don't have water, we feel disturbed. We feel incomplete, and we feel a kind of emptiness, like I've got some emptiness in me, and I want to get it out. I want to get rid of it. And so then what do I need? So I go searching for water. And when I finally drink that water, I think that I'm enjoying, but it's not a positive kind of enjoyment. It's actually just counteracting this feeling of agitation that I had when I didn't have any water. And hunger is the same way. If I don't eat, I feel a very uncomfortable, disturbing sensation. And so the desire is born from that. So actually, desire is a kind of agitation which is always pushing us to have to go and pursue more things. I need my own house because I feel a kind of discomfort or agitation when I have to share space with others, or I want a really nice car because I feel a sense of agitation when I see somebody else has a better car than me, or when I don't have the freedom to go here and there as I like. So behind every desire is actually a feeling of discomfort and agitation. So although desires are glorified in modern society, it's actually a very desperate situation having all these desires and all these thirsts, because it means we've got so many different kinds of agitations within our mind, always pushing us in this way and that. And as Prabhupada says, these desires are so strong that they're able to dictate to us, okay, now you go here, now you go there. And so we end up in life just running left and right, trying to fulfill all these desires, which our sense of dissatisfaction and emptiness is pushing us to do. And but when we engage in sense gratification, there's no actual solution being brought. I believe in the previous verse, yes, these desires we're trying to satisfy these desires by engaging in sense gratification is like supplying butter to a fire with the attempt that I'm going to diminish this fire by pouring butter on it or by pouring ghee on it. I'm gonna put it out, but it doesn't extinguish the fire. It only increases it. Kind of solution desires the thirst for enjoyment that we're feeling. And a really interesting line in this verse is the second line, Jiryato ya najiryate. So this word is used twice actually, Jiryato and jiryate. And the first one is translated as even by one who is an invalid because of old age. And the second one is na jiryate. His desires are not vanquished. So actually the repetition of this word indicates that even though the material body that a living entity is trying to use to fulfill his desires is constantly deteriorating, and that manifests through invalidity, that manifests through old age, even though his body is constantly in its course of deteriorating more and more. The desires that he feels that are that agitation, they're not deteriorating. So one thing is deteriorating and the other thing isn't. So the material body is constantly deteriorating, and our desire is not deteriorating, it's remaining just as strong as ever. And this creates a very desperate situation, because this body that's deteriorating, that's our only instrument. Thank you so much. That's our only instrument that we have to try and fulfill these desires. And so in its youth, it may seem like a very good instrument to fulfill desires, but as we get older, it becomes less and less capable. And but the desire doesn't diminish along with it. Maybe it wouldn't be quite as bad if the desires would diminish along with the capacity of the body to enjoy. But that is actually the real suffering of the aging process, is that my desire to go out there and do things and have experiences and enjoy life, it remains just as strong, whereas day by day my facility is decreasing. So in what ways are the senses deteriorating? For example, we like to enjoy through the tongue, but the taste buds gradually become more and more dull as we grow older. We like to enjoy through the eyes, seeing so many different kinds of spectacles, and but we find many problems with the eyes as we get older. Our vision tends to become worse. We may even develop a disease such as glaucoma or cataracts, which is a big impediment to being able to navigate through the world and enjoy and, see a beautiful sight. And our sense of hearing may become more and more a source of botheration. Can't even have conversations with our friends as before. So it's a very challenging thing. And when as we go about life, we can see people actually, that although the body is getting older and less capable of enjoying, people are still really holding on. They're trying to kind of keep themselves in a sense of delusion that no, it's okay, I can still go on as long as I'm still wearing the most stylish clothing, keeping up with the latest stylish trends, I'll still look very good. And so you can sometimes see older persons, they're wearing this very kind of hip young clothing and really tight, tight jeans and everything, really trying to keep with it, but at a certain point, as the clock is ticking 70 plus, 80 plus, everybody can see that this person is really desperately trying to hold on to something that's just, spilling through their fingers like sand. However, when we see persons like that as we're going, about our day-to-day life, or maybe when we're in tour for the Saturday Harinam and we're able to see people passing by, we shouldn't just think that, oh, that person's in a very poor condition. Actually, we should see that person and think, actually, that's my condition. That's my condition, because I'm in exactly the same kind of body. I'm in exactly the same kind of vessel. And if this vessel that I'm in right now, even if I may be 18 years old or 20 or something years old, so this vessel may not to be in such a bad condition, but actually I can understand that if it appears that way, it's only because there's a little bit of time. There's a very thin sheet of time just separating this bodily condition from that bodily condition. And within just a few seconds, I'll be there. So when I see that, I should think, that's actually my condition. That's not just their condition, that's my condition. And I heard this story one time. I was told it was a story about Buddha. I don't know where it comes from. It's not from Bhagavatam or the Vedas as far as I know, but there's a nice lesson in it. So I'll just recount this story. That apparently Buddha, he every day he would drink from a particular glass of water. He would have a glass of water, and he would drink from this particular glass. It's a very nice, ornate glass. And he had it for many years. And then one day, one of his disciples, or maybe he accidentally brushed it off the desk, or one of his disciples accidentally dropped it. And so it fell to the floor and crashed into many pieces. And when this happened, the Buddha was not disturbed by it. And he said, do you know why I'm not lamenting for this glass having broken, even though I've had it for so many years? It's a very nice glass. It's because actually year after year, day after day, every time I took a sip from this glass or saw this glass, I would think, this glass is already broken. This glass is already broken. So then when the day came where it finally did break, it was not a shock, because he saw actually, this is the inevitable condition of this glass. It's not going to stay here forever. It's going to break, and practically speaking, actually it's already broken. I should just accept that it's already broken. So in the same way we can understand, okay, I may appear to be in a young body, but actually this body is already old and invalid. There's just a thin veneer of time apparently separating me from that reality. So after hearing how apparently hopeless it is, this quest to try and satisfy our senses, and these desires are so strong that even old men who you would expect to already be wizened by age, they're still dealing with desires that are no less strong than they were before. One might think, well, what is our hope? Can this strong desire be subdued at all? And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he teaches that yes, it can actually be subdued, but only by advancement of Krishna consciousness. And he cites the example of Sri Yamunacharya, who is describing here that as he goes on discharging his services for Krishna, he's feeling greater and greater happiness. So much so that even when he just thinks of sense gratification, which is particularly personified in sexual gratification, he just immediately spits at the thought. He doesn't feel that desire is gripping him to do that, because he's experiencing greater and greater happiness in Krishna consciousness. And therefore Prabhupada is saying an experienced and advanced devotee is no longer interested in sex life. The strong desire for sex, or any form of sense gratification is also included in that, can be subdued only by advancement in Krishna consciousness. So why might that be? Why is it that only Krishna consciousness can ultimately deal with this problem of desire, even though there's also different ways of trying to deal with it? For example, one may think of renouncing the world and heading to the forest or heading to the mountains or the Himalayas to engage in meditation and to be away from all the allurements of city life. So why is it that Krishna consciousness is being named here as the only way to get beyond these desires? And one explanation that can be given here is that the real root of our problem, of this problem of this great desire, is material desire, is ignorance, which is ignorance of our real nature, ignorance of our actual eternal constitutional position. And that position is that we're eternal servants of Krishna. And so Krishna is the eternal and supreme master, and we're eternal servants of Krishna. And there's a relationship between the two of us that is the enjoyer and the enjoyed. So Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, and actually everything is for his enjoyment, and that includes us as individual parts and parcels. Our nature is to be enjoyed by Krishna. Our nature is to offer ourselves for Krishna's enjoyment, for Krishna's happiness. And I know that when I first read about this dynamic, how Krishna is the enjoyer, we're the enjoyed. Krishna is the predominator, and we are the predominated. I know that I really didn't like it very much. I didn't like the thought that, how come I'm the predominated? How come I'm the enjoyed? And it didn't sound very nice. In fact, it kind of gave me also sort of a strange idea that Krishna is kind of an exploiting enjoyer person, like he's organized the whole setup so that he's at the top and everything is for his enjoyment, and then we're just like these objects to be used and exploited by him. That was the sense that I had when I was first reading this. I really didn't like that, but as I went on reading Srila Prabhupada's books, he gave me a better and better understanding of actually what is the nature of Krishna, Krishna's character, and this relationship between the enjoyer and all the living entities who are enjoyed. And in the small book, it's called Beyond Birth and Death, Prabhupada gives this example. Well, he says that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, we're the enjoyed. He said, but actually both the enjoyer and the enjoyed, they both partake of the enjoyment. And he gave the example of a husband and wife. So Krishna being in the masculine position, he's the enjoyer, and all the living entities are actually prakriti. We're parts and parcels of Krishna's feminine energy. And so that same kind of absolute nature is also reflected, in a sense, in the material world. That the husband in the relationship is like in the masculine, the enjoyer position, and the wife is in the feminine, enjoyed position. And so in so many ways, the husband is enjoying the presence of the wife and her services. She's particularly in traditional culture, she's cooking very nice dinner, foodstuffs for the husband. The husband appreciates. She's wearing very beautiful clothing, and when he comes home after a hard day of work, she's there to soothe him and just kind of be there to have nice interactions and have pleasant joking between husband and wife. And so Prabhupada gives this example in Beyond Birth and Death. He says, however, when husband and wife are interacting in this way, although he's in the position of the enjoyer and she's in the position of the enjoyed, actually when they're interacting with it in this way, they're both enjoying so much that one can't even tell who's enjoying more, actually. You can't say who's enjoying more, because actually both are partaking in that happiness of relating together in that way. And so it's just the same with Krishna and all of his many eternal parts and parcels who are his servants. Although they're all acting and serving in so many ways as to please Krishna and to make Krishna happy, that enjoyment that is there, they're partaking in it just as much. They're partaking in that enjoyment. And from the outside, you can't tell, like, who's enjoying more, who's having more fun, Krishna or his devotees. You can't really tell. And so, if we want to be happy, because in this verse, the fourth line is Sharma Kama Drutam Tyajet. It's saying that actually, if somebody actually wants to be happy, then they need to give up these desires. So if we want to be happy and they want to partake of enjoyment, then there's two possible positions. You can either enjoy by being the enjoyer, or you can enjoy by being the enjoyed. But the problem with trying to enjoy by taking the role of the enjoyer is that there's a very high qualification for that role. So you may apply for the job, but if you don't fit the description, you won't be able to succeed at trying to enjoy from that position. And especially in the material world, you'll find lots of competition, because everybody's trying to take the position of the enjoyer and the master. So you'll find you have to compete with all of them, and then you'll find that actually in the end, because Krishna's natural, eternal position is that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's actually the only person who has that qualification to be the enjoyer. And so we must fall short of the qualifications required. However, if somebody gets the idea in their head that, maybe I'll try to partake of this enjoyment by taking the position of a servant who's enjoyed, then actually we're already qualified, because our eternal nature is servants. So you're pre-qualified, just like sometimes you may get in the mail a letter that says you're pre-qualified for a credit card or for a car loan or something. That means that they've already looked into your financial background and they've already determined that you qualify for it. So you don't have to worry that, I'll have to go through some process and then maybe I won't even get the loan in the end. But actually you're pre-qualified. That means it's already guaranteed. If you just respond to this letter, you're guaranteed to get this credit card or this car or this home loan. So because we're eternal servants of Krishna, we're already pre-qualified to partake in the eternal spiritual enjoyment that takes place in the spiritual world, if we're ready to take the position of an enjoyed servant. And we can give the example that if somebody passes by a multi-billion-dollar house, a mansion, this is amazing, elegant, so many gardens and lakes and swans in the lakes, and so incredible facility, incredible, the inside of this mansion has all the luxuries that one could ever desire, a hot tub and a gigantic, LED, big screen TV, or whatever the case may be, or a kitchen with all full facilities and everything. And one gets the desire that I would like to enjoy living in a house like that. Well, if they want to fulfill that desire by becoming the master of such a house, then they have a lot of work to do. They have to somehow establish themselves as a successful entrepreneur. They have to really work their way to the top of the business world. They have to have some great idea. They have to have excellent management skills. They have to, as they're gaining wealth, they have to be very careful that people are going to come and try to cheat them. And it's such a difficult pathway to to that, to the day that I finally have several $billion and I can actually buy that dream house. It may take many, many decades, and then one doesn't even know if one will succeed, actually. But actually, in that multi-billion-dollar house, there are many servants already living there. And they actually have a servants' quarters. And if one could just go on Craigslist, I don't know, in the US we have a job listing thing called Craigslist. I don't know what it is in France. Craigslist. It's like a job, it's a famous job listing website. So, huh? Indie? So, if you just go on indie.fl and you just find okay, just search for, servant positions, and you can find a position in one of these multi-billion-dollar houses as a cook or as a cleaner, and they'll provide a nice quarters for you. And you can actually live there, and you'll be living in the same atmosphere, and on your time off you can go and walk around the lakes, and you can feed the swans, and whenever the master is not home, he's not home for the weekend, you can just sit and watch the big screen TV. And just think how quickly somebody can attain this position. They don't need those decades and decades of very difficult work. So they're already pre-qualified for that position. And so he's enjoying all the same facility as the multi-billionaire without having had to attain this impossible qualification. So actually, by reinstating ourselves in our real nature as eternal servants who are enjoyed by Krishna, we naturally become free from all these desires, and we naturally get to partake in the enjoyment that goes on, that is always going on between Krishna and his devotees. Actually we just chanted Jai Radha Madhava, and one of the lines in Jai Radha Madhava is Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. And this term Braja Jana Ranjana, it describes what Krishna's business is in the spiritual world. It describes Krishna as one who gives pleasure to the residents of Vrindavan. He's always engaged in giving pleasure to the residents of Vrindavan. So although the residents of Vrindavan, they have only one business, which is to please Krishna, that's not Krishna's business. Krishna's business is not to just please himself. His business is to reciprocate with his devotees, because they're working so hard to please him. He wants to please them. So this is actually the character of Krishna, and this is actually the relationship between Krishna and his devotees. Although his natural position, his eternal position is as the enjoyer, and they're the enjoyed, he simply wants to give them happiness, and they want to give him happiness. And this is the pleasing atmosphere of the spiritual world that you can't find anywhere else. You can't find it in the material world except where Krishna's devotees are there serving him. Then you can find those bubbles that will pop up of that spiritual atmosphere. So this is the answer to that doubt that I had earlier on when I was reading, like Krishna's the enjoyer, I'm the enjoyed. It sounds like a sadistic relationship, but it's actually a very mutually loving relationship. And so if we want real happiness, we should swiftly give up our material desires by surrendering to Krishna. And Krishna is somebody that we can trust. He's somebody that we can surrender to. He's Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. He's the best well-wishing friend of every living entity. He's situated in their heart simply because he's waiting for the opportunity to reignite that loving relationship with them. Even though a living entity may have abandoned Krishna, he's not abandoned them. He stays with everybody. And so, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, Krishna is the eternal, best, well-wishing friend of every living entity. And so, if we can surrender to anybody, we can certainly surrender to Krishna, because there's nobody else better to surrender to. It's just Krishna. we can't trust in, we can't really benefit from surrendering to anybody else. So, okay. Are there any questions or comments or corrections?
Actually, what you said about trying to get a job in a big company, but it's very true. Because once I was working, I had this big screen TV, a nice job and everything, but I was suffering so much. So I met a CEO of a very big company. So I told him I'm not able to sleep at night. And he said for the past 15 years I haven't slept at night. So he's in a much higher position. So it's very true.
Oh. Thank you. That's a nice comment. Yes, Prabhu?
We can see that the infinity of desire is reflected in the infinity, almost infinity of the numbers of bodies that the living beings are obliged to d'encaisser, obliged to wear.
Yeah.
You know, there's 8,004,000 different bodies, and they offer 8,400,000 sets of sense gratification with a specific body and senses according to the desires of the living entities that have been nourished in past lives. And Krishna gives the opportunity to fuel this desire through this sense instrument and body instrument. So there are so many bodies because there is so many desires that have been fueled. There's no limit. So it's like an ashwattham tree, a banyan tree. You have so many branches, then they become roots, and again, in a forest, you don't see the beginning or the end. It looks like it's not possible to cut all these branches and like that. But if we try to satisfy Krishna, Krishna will cut himself the impulse for this desire, and the desires will vanish in a mystical way. We don't understand, but it's Krishna that works internally in the heart that makes the desires disappear, material desires. When we replace them by desire to satisfy Krishna. Otherwise there's no limit, it's like a universe. We see it's a universe of planets, of bodies, and
Jai. Thank you for that comment, Prabhu. Yes, Theo?
Comment on fait pour s'abandonner totalement à Krishna et arriver à vaincre les désirs matériels?
How to surrender completely to Krishna and to vanquish material
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so as we read here, that by surrendering to Krishna, our material desires, he will vanquish our material desires. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that even though this material energy is extremely difficult to overcome, it's actually his energy. It's his energy and he's completely in control of it. And so, although for us it's insurmountable, for him it's effortless to control it because it's his. And therefore he says, one who surrenders unto me can easily cross over this ocean of material existence. So Krishna makes it possible. He also says, Mat chitta sarvadurgani mat prasada tarishyasi. If one simply becomes conscious of me, they will cross over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace, by my mercy. So Krishna renders one capable of overcoming the material energy by his mercy. And so then we just have to put ourselves to surrender. So then you asked, well, what is that surrender? So one of the first and easiest two aspects of surrender that we can adopt in our life is anukul. Oh no, what is it? Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjanam. So we accept what's favorable for Krishna consciousness, and we reject what's unfavorable for Krishna consciousness. And so one of the first steps there is that there's 4 activities which are very unfavorable for Krishna consciousness, and practically one really can't become God conscious or approach Krishna if one's engaged in these 4 activities. So there's illicit sex is one of those activities. Meat eating, eating meat, fish, and eggs. Intoxication in the form of alcohol, smoking, tobacco, marijuana, other kinds of drugs, and also gambling. So we preliminarily give up these 4 things, and because they're unfavorable, even if we are attached to them, we still give them up, and that's the manifestation of surrender. And we accept the chanting of Hare Krishna. We try to chant Hare Krishna in our everyday life, and read Prabhupada's books in our everyday life. And by getting that contact with Krishna through his name, through his words in the Bhagavad Gita, we'll be purified, and that's one act of surrender. And it says here that Yamunacharya is saying that he's gaining this happiness and detachment from material desires by discharging his duties for Krishna. So we can get some service for Krishna. We can get some service that we can render to Krishna. Render service in the temple, we can render service by distributing books, we can render service by just sharing the message of Krishna consciousness with others. And we can surrender to Krishna by washing pots for Krishna, by cleaning the floor for Krishna, by going out and hauling logs for Krishna, by taking care of the cows for Krishna. And then, so it starts like that, and gradually a devotee surrenders more and more and more to Krishna, gives more and more of his time, his energy, his life, his resources to Krishna, until he sees that really nothing is mine, everything is Krishna's, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, and I'm Krishna's too, so let me just, this is really my only engagement. And even if one has an occupation within the material world, one can still surrender to Krishna through that occupation. So there's, that's a start at least for discussing what does it mean to surrender to Krishna. But of course it's a big topic, and in fact every single class is about how to surrender to Krishna. All the books are describing how to surrender to Krishna. So it's a large topic that we discover step by step as we go through Krishna consciousness. We're reading, we're hearing, and so this is kind of like a preliminary, and then as we go on, we fill it in more and more what our understanding is of how to surrender to Krishna. All right, thank you everybody. I'll go ahead and end the class there. Thank you for that nice question, Theo.
Thank you.
And thank you. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai. In English? Hallelujah.